The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Café. This is the United Podcast Network.
Welcome to this episode of Pit Life BBQ. Gather around the pit with your hosts, Johnnie Mags, Messy Mike, and Crawdaddy Chris. Let's talk barbecue.
What's up, everybody? Coming to you live from the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. It's the Pit Life BBQ show, where we talk everything barbecue and a lot of other topics that you would normally talk around the pit. As always, today I'm joined by Crawdaddy Chris.
Hey, thanks for tuning in, guys.
And our good friend at the very end, Messy Mike.
Hello, guys.
So, guys, pulled pork,
Boston butts,
pork butts,
Picnic shoulders,
carnitas. Oh, we're getting international here.
Yes, we are.
All right. Got to help. So,
Let's get into it. So, what'd you do this weekend first? Did you smoke anything? What'd you smoke?
I smoked a cigar.
Beautiful.
It was a pretty laid-back weekend.
Nice.
You know, trying to get a couple of the pages set up, a little bit more of some social media presence for all of us. Got an email, got a domain name.
Nice.
So we're
getting there.
along. So yes, I didn't have time to jump into the smoker. I just stuck with the cigars.
Sweet.
How about you?
Yeah, I did. Past weekend, I did some pigs. So yeah, I did a lot of pork. A couple pork butts today I smoked, and they came out delicious.
Not the 21 pork butts like you did a couple weeks ago.
No, not the 21. Not the 21.
Took it easy.
Oh yeah.
So when we're doing pork shoulders or pork butts or whatever, what's your go-to rub if you're going to make it up yourself?
If I'm going to make it out myself, I found a very simple rub. It consists of 1 cup of light brown sugar. That's right. Grab a pen. I'm giving this to you for nothing. Zip, zero, nada. On the arm.
Award-winning rub.
Award-winning rub that hasn't won a damn award. 1 cup of light brown sugar. 2 tablespoons of chili powder. 2 tablespoons of mustard powder. 2 tablespoons of onion powder. 2 tablespoons of garlic powder. 2 tablespoons kosher salt. 2 tablespoons of black pepper. 2 teaspoons of cayenne pepper. Got to add the little kick at the end.
Little fire.
Correct.
And you want to make sure those ones aren't tablespoons, teaspoons.
Teaspoons on the cayenne pepper.
Burning your face off.
But yeah, I had found that a couple years ago when I first started. It's a nice, simple rub. If you do any form of cooking in general, you're going to have 80% of these in your cabinets. So you don't really have to run out to too much. You might have to run out for the mustard powder. But everything else you pretty much would probably have
In your spice cabinet.
Spice rack.
Yeah, and there's plenty of different barbecue companies that sell their own rub online you can find. So
Oh yeah.
you guys Google them, you're going to find them.
You'll find a lot.
And, that's just a simple one, and you can tweak it your own. Make it your own, just like you did, like you had said first episode, with your sauce. You start with a base and just
Go from there.
Yep. So now that we got a little rub going on, rub that puppy down, and you're gonna have the smoker hot.
I love when he talks like that.
What temperature are we cooking at here? I mean, what do you know?
Really depends on how much time you have. You typically want to keep the smoker between 225 and 250. I like to go like 225, 230. But again, sometimes if I'm at an event and I get there a little later than expected, then I'm shooting for 250, and maybe even 260 range, and then I'll lower the temp to like 225, 230 after a couple hours. But that's me. I know some guys that do 275, and I know guys that do 215. 220.
And once again, the internal temperature game comes into play where as long as you get to 165 and you're wrapping it up, and then you're pushing it to 200 plus,
you're good to go.
You're good to go.
Good to go.
Yep. So, I'm in the 225 to 250 range on my.
Yeah, I'm always right around that 250 range myself. You know, anything over that, I get a little worried.
What's your wood preference?
What preference? 250.
Wood preference.
Oh, wood preference? Apple.
Apple. Okay.
Apple hickory, right here.
Apple.
Apple.
So now, I don't know if I missed it while I was, taking notes and the like, but as far as the rub, you put that on. How long do you want to let it sit? Does it matter? Does it help?
Before the rub, and this is optional, but I've actually, learned, through the years that just take a basic yellow mustard and
binders,
squirt it on it. And, some people say it acts as the glue, but it also acts as a tenderizer because of the vinegar and the mustard. So, get that all slathered in mustard. It doesn't really matter, how much you use. Just don't go crazy with it. You won't taste it in the end.
I feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the mustard helps it create a bark.
Yes.
Because I've done it both ways. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, it's a nice bark, nice crust to it.
Yeah, you get a little more crisp.
Yep, and that's because the mustard holds the rub on instead of just doing it on a bare piece of meat, and then you're moving it around and your rub's falling off. So you want to get a nice coating of rub on on all sides of the pork butt. I usually don't do the bottom because it's all fat, the fat cap, and most of the time when I'm taking it off the smoker, I'm removing that before I serve it anyway.
That needs love too, though, man.
It does, but sometimes it's just I don't want to waste the rub.
Now, do you follow the same rule, fat cap down, fat cap up on the pork butt?
Pork butts, I do fat cap down.
Chris, same rule, closest to the fire?
I usually put fat cap down, but then when I wrap, I'll flip it.
Flip it over, let it melt.
Fat on top, yeah. So, now we got the pork butts or pork shoulders rubbed down. We got them on the smoker, 225, 250. What are you guys spritzing them with? People use a lot of different things.
I'm simple, basic. I just use apple cider vinegar or a mix of apple cider vinegar and apple juice. Keeping it simple.
Yeah. I usually do the same thing. I did try one thing one time that I got off a website or a Facebook or something like that, but Dr. Pepper spritzed pork butt. Have you guys heard of that?
No,
I have.
It sounds amazing, and it was amazing. So,
well, some people use root beer too.
Root beer.
So, when you're doing a crock pot, back many moons ago when I was doing pork butts and crock pots, I basically just put.
You did that?
Oh, 100%, 100%. I do, root beer, pork butt in there, rubbed all, put the root beer in there, let it cook. Once it's done cooking, then kind of drain the root beer out, then put your sauce in, and that was a fan favorite for a long time.
How was your turnout with your, would you use Dr. Pepper too?
I used Dr. Pepper too because I had actually seen it on one of your posts, and everyone was focused on the picture you had on the pit. But I noticed the little spritz bottle hanging on there.
You did text me or ask me.
Little dark in color. So I had messaged you, what are you spritzing with? Oh, you caught that. I go, well, I pay attention, my friend. I was looking for something because my wife is not a huge fan of the apple juice, that flavor. Mm-hmm. So I need to come up with something. So I took your idea of...
I can't take credit for
the Dr. Pepper, but I also saw the Dr. Pepper by a friend of ours on Facebook and a member of the North Texas Barbecue Addicts, Big Kano, Chris Kano.
Shout out to North Texas Barbecue Addicts. And
he loves the Dr. Pepper, so that's what I did. I came up with a little concoction of Dr. Pepper, brown sugar, and a little bit of barbecue sauce. Mix it all in. And sometimes I can get it thin enough that it works on the spray bottle for the spritz. Sometimes it just will clog up. So I went out and I bought one of the slathering mops that you use on whole hog. Mm-hmm. Works for me. A little bit more work, but it's all right. But yeah, I love the Dr.
It's pretty good.
Pepper.
Sweet. You get a nice sweet
It
flavor.
has a nice little something to it.
Nice.
A weird one I tried one time, and it actually was pretty good, but pineapple juice. Totally different flavor.
Oh, a little Hawaiian.
Little Hawaiian
action.
Pineapple and pork go.
100%.
Oh,
hand in hand.
absolutely.
So that was pretty good. Might want to give that a whirl.
And you can use basically whatever you have, to spritz with. Some people use beer,
Guilty.
Yep.
I guess you could go Cuban with like some mojo or something. That's orange juice, lime, and
There we go.
cumin and oregano.
Ooh, might be on.
That sounds delicious.
All right, so we're trying to start with pulled pork. So we are starting with the pork shoulder, also known as the picnic ham, blade roast, or the Boston butt. How did it get to the Boston butt?
Well, I know but I'll give you a myth that I've heard.
We have two different stories here.
Well, this is coming from some friends in Chicago who've been in the butcher business for a long time, and I don't know if it's just them being from Chicago, but they basically said to me that how Boston butt got its name is because them being from Chicago and they're shipping all the butts to Boston, then they just basically said Boston. Boston butts, Boston ass, whatever. And so it's kind of like a slang term used, like, basically like Yankees, Red Sox type deal, and that's what I always thought it really was. But you're going to give us the real
Well, I'll tell you right now. I grew up in right outside Dallas, Texas, and I have never heard of a Boston butt until I moved up here.
Are you serious?
Never heard of the Boston butt. I moved up here at 19, so I wasn't really big in the barbecue game, so I wasn't searching for that title, but I just had never heard it. I've heard of pulled pork butts, pork shoulders, but
And it had no relation to masshole.
no.
Okay.
Not to you massholes.
Well, from the one I had found, it goes back to pre-Revolutionary War times. The butchers in the Boston area would have these extra cuts of pork cuts that weren't highly valued, like the loin or the ham.
The shitty cuts.
So we'd have what you would call the shitty cuts. So they're not too high valued, which also stems how you got the phrase high on the hog.
Right.
The high on the hog would be the valuable points, the ham, the loin. So the butchers would pack those lower valued pieces and pack them into casks or wooden barrels. The barrels were at that time known as butts. So they'd pack them in there for storage and shipping, hence the Boston butt.
Huh.
That sounds a lot better than my myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yours is
Little
fun.
lesson
Add
today.
the
Mine's
sports
fun.
into it.
Yeah.
So, I don't want to get away from the history of it, but it sounds like you covered it. But
The history's pretty much done.
so we got them on. We're talking about spritzing. I usually keep mine shut for at least an hour before I hit the first spritz. You guys, preference and intervals in between spritzing.
I'll usually do like 2 hours. I'll probably hit it the first hour and then every 2 hours after that. But other than that, it also depends on what smoker I'm using. If I'm using my offset smoker,
right,
then I'm going to spritz it. If I'm using the old hickory, then I'm just going to let it go and check on it tomorrow.
Right. And I've had some long cooks with some pork butts. I'm sure we all have. One way you guys can, if you're listening and you don't know, one way you can cut down on the time is smaller pork butts.
Yep.
Smaller pork shoulders. Instead of buying one big one, buy two. You can feed your family by 5 just by starting in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah. The average, the average butt is approximately 5 to 9 pounds. So if you do want to cut the cooking time, then go towards the 5 pound or whatever. And yeah.
But
Now, do you go into any?
And I don't use, I won't use shoulder to do pulled pork, only because I don't like taking the skin off. Because the shoulders come with that, the actual pig skin on.
So you buy the whole, when you buy the whole shoulder. Very good. Now, obviously we kind of jumped ahead a little bit because we're already on it's already on the pit. But the trimming of any excess bone you need to be careful of in the process.
Right.
Just rub your hand across, see if you catch anything. If you get stuck with anything, just trim that off. Make sure that's out of the way because that can turn ugly real quick.
What are you using, a hacksaw?
Sharp knives, baby.
Nice, all right.
You know me and Mike.
I need new knives then.
I gotta have my gimmicks. I buy every little gimmick. Guilty as charged, but you got a couple laughs out of me on that stuff. All my little toys and gadgets. So we're on. We have on for a few hours. We are now approaching
our fifth beer.
Our fifth beer, and which would approximately bring you to 165 degrees. To wrap or not to wrap, once again, is the question.
My opinion on pork butts, always wrap. I don't think I've ever done a pork butt without wrapping. I wrap at 165. I don't know. And I've used foil. I've heard people using butcher paper. I don't know, but I've only used foil. How about yourself?
I wrap, and I use saran wrap or plastic wrap first. Wrap it, and then I'll use tin foil. And I'll double the tin foil just to keep it insulated, but I use the saran wrap just so the juices stay in and, nothing leaks out. Plus, when you're taking it out of the pit, it helps with the mess, with all the grease and stuff.
And you don't have a problem with that saran wrap?
Nope. If it's inside the tin foil.
I know I've helped you before, and I've seen you do that, but...
Yep, you just got to make sure when you're wrapping it, if there is like the bone or whatever, or the bark, sometimes it'll cut into the saran wrap, so you'll have holes. So just, loosely wrap it, and then wrap it in 2 layers of tin foil, and then throw it back on.
Nice.
And then I'll temp it, wait for it, have a couple more beers, and then I'll temp it, it gets to like 195. I'll pull it off the smoker and, let it rest for a little bit.
You don't hit the two. My magic number's always been 203. That's what I was told. Stuck with it.
Usually when I'm doing them, I'll throw it in a cooler or I'll throw it in a Cambro. So once it's in a Cambro, it's still going to continue the cooking process. So, and it's not long. And then from there, once I pull it out of there, once the bone pulls right out of it, that's how I know it's perfect.
So now, from wrap to finish time, how much time is that? I know it's not precise, but approximately how long am
I put on pork butts last night at 7 o'clock at 2:25, and they were done at 8 o'clock this morning. So
13 hours, approximately.
Approximately 13 hours.
So it's staying wrapped until it's done then?
The one that I did last night, I did not wrap it until this morning.
Okay.
When I came out this morning, it was at 6 o'clock this morning. It was at about 160, 165. That's when I wrapped it and then threw it back on and just kept every hour. I just checked the temp.
Here's the reason I ask. If I get to the point where I'm wrapping it and now I realize, I don't have time to, watch the fire management. Could I just throw it in the oven at that point in the house? I mean, what's the difference going to be if it's wrapped?
Once a cheater, always a cheater. No.
You can.
But it's considered cheating?
Yeah. I would say so in my opinion, but
I mean, once it's wrapped, your smoker's acting like an oven anyway.
Right.
But I've done that, in the past, and for some reason your texture just kind of changes a little bit in putting it in the oven. I don't know why, but to me, I just don't do it.
I had a brilliant idea. I'm going to do a pork butt. Saturday morning, I get up bright and early. It was probably like 4:30 in the morning, light the pit, rub the butt down, throw it on the smoker. Come 9 o'clock, my wife was like, hey, let's go do this for the day. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. It turned out to be a nice day. And I was like, it's already got some good smoke on it. So we lit off the crock pot, and I've cheated too. So
no, you got to do what you got to do sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, and it came out good. So
But does it taste as good knowing you cheated?
I don't know. No, I can say no. The hard work definitely pays off of watching it, and
That's the fun part.
yeah, I agree. But as far as you mentioned, you take them off at 195. I take mine off 203, whatever. But you put yours in a Cambro.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of people don't know what a Cambro is because I didn't know what one is until I started helping you.
Cambro is a food transport. It keeps food hot or cold for roughly 4 hours, and it holds the metal aluminum trays, whether they're half trays, full trays. It's basically a cooler, but for aluminum trays and catering.
Yeah.
So like a hot box.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I've always used a cooler. Wrap it in a towel, put it in a cooler. And honestly, if you wrap it in a towel, put it in a cooler, you're going to keep it at its temperature within 2 or 3 degrees probably for like 10 hours.
Yeah, if it's a Yeti.
If it's a good cooler. Advertisement.
Oh, hey, listen, I swear by every single Yeti product.
I agree.
I know I've been called the jerk. I've been called a fool, ass, anything else that goes along with it. A cooler is not worth $300.
Yes, it is.
Yes, they are.
I totally
Yes,
agree,
they
but I
are.
guess I'm the cheapskate. I let him buy the coolers, and I buy the Coleman. He gives me the sticker. So
They give them the Yeti stickers to
so
put
I
on.
just put it on my
Come
cooler.
with every product.
Yep.
Yeah, I have them.
So it sounds like cooler's the way to go if somebody says to me, okay, can you bring brisket to my party?
Exactly.
All day long.
I just got a plan to make sure I have enough time for the brisket to get done, and then I can put it in the cooler if it's a few hours.
Yeah, you got a good.
You want it
7 to 10 hour window, something like that.
Yeah, and like the brisket you want in the cooler for at least an hour. And then anything after that is bonus.
Yeah, minimum rest times. Yeah, you don't want to. A lot of people, I did it when I first started smoking, but you don't want to take your food off right away and just start hacking into it. Because I think a lot of the benefits of letting it rest is it's wrapped up in that foil, it's wrapped up in the saran wrap like you do it, but it allows that meat to just suck all of them juices back in while it's sitting there nice and hot. So as it's cooling,
Exactly. 'Cause you're not going to cut into a piece of steak right off the grill.
Same thing as that,
So,
yeah.
same idea.
Which is one of the hardest things to do because we've been waiting patience all day long to get it to the perfect temperature, to get to the perfect doneness.
you got to have those
And
little
then-
test pieces.
Oh, yeah.
We ready? No, we have to wait. What do you mean you have to wait? Oh, it's got to rest.
Yeah,
So, but hey, that's why it's a labor of love.
that's right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Now, does this have a bone in it? So when I'm all done and I'm pulling the pork, or what's the methodology
pork,
for that?
You can do boneless. I always prefer bone in just because one, I think personally it cooks faster, just because it cooks from the inside out and
More
a
evenly.
little more flavor. But basically, when a pork butt is done or a pulled pork is done, when you can just take that bone and you go boop, and it slides right out, and there's no remnants of meat on it whatsoever. That's when your pork is done, and then you just pull it, and you can sauce it when you pull it, or choose not to sauce it. Some people just do a vinegar spritz on it just to keep it a little moist. Some people put an after rub on it. So you can do whatever you want, but that's the basics of pulled pork.
John's already the gadget guy. Do you have something special you use for
Oh, do you have the
pulling
claws?
pork?
You have the-
I bought the claws.
Yeah,
God
I knew
damn
you
it.
did.
I bought the
Yeah.
claws, an eBay special, $3 coming from China. Took a month, but whatever.
Nice.
I got the claws. Yeah.
See, it didn't take me long to realize he's the gadget guy.
Yeah.
He's got to buy everything.
Oh, I
he sees.
gotta play with everything. I just fidget around all day
A
long.
lot of people have those claws.
And
I just usually pull it by hand, but
Another on the gadget kind of idea. Usually, when you're pulling pork or even handling brisket or whatever.
Easy. This is a barbecue show.
Thank you. Sorry. Your food gloves, but sometimes the meat still is hot, and you're pulling. You're like, shit, it's hot. Go to a hardware store, a paint store, and just buy cotton gloves, a white cotton glove. They usually come in like 12 packs for a couple bucks, and then throw your food glove right on top of that, and now it's your heat gloves. So now you can handle it, and you don't have to get the rubber silicone gloves and washing them, and
Yeah.
the inside
That
gets
is-
all shitty because it's
You know
got,
something?
That is a nice
You
trick.
need to be quiet. You're giving all my goddamn secrets away. I have them, the bright orange with the nubs. I can touch anything. Just pull it right off.
I think my brother-in-law, Kevin, has the same ones. Yeah.
Because it's so difficult to find the cooking gloves, the rain silicone gloves to fit these.
Oh, yeah.
And not only
I don't have that problem.
When you do find them, you're dropping $1 on them.
Yes.
They're not cheap.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that purchase of the heavy-duty rubber gloves
Reusable.
was well worth it. Reusable, tuck them right in the drawer with my other gadgets.
Nice.
Any comment?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Just giving you the open window.
Nope, not yet.
Not yet, so still to come. Exactly. Which this is the beauty of barbecue. You sit around with your buddies, you joke back and forth, and you get some laughs out of it. Don't take life too serious.
That's right.
And make it your own. Make whatever you're cooking your own.
I mean, all the barbecue friends I have, they're great at barbecuing. There's no right, there's no wrong way to barbecue. Nope. Everyone's always looking for another tip or a way somebody did something. So
correct. And depending on what part of the country you're in, pulled pork's going to be different in Memphis compared to Texas compared to here. So it just depends on what part of the country and your traditions as well.
Yeah, if you guys are watching this Facebook Live or whatever on our page, put on there how you've done your pork butts. Show us some tips and share with us how you get it done.
Yeah, we'd like to see some pictures.
Definitely show us some pictures.
Yeah, I actually already warned Mike of about Sunday, rib competition at the Smutty Nose. I said to him, if I happen to get scary quiet, don't worry about it. I'm watching you like a hawk, trying to pick up more techniques, more tricks, because that's what you got to do.
Yeah, nobody's a master.
No one taught me how to cook. My mother never taught me how to cook, per se. I learned, but people ask, how'd you learn how to cook? I always say my mother. I sat there and I watched. I'm dyslexic, so the trying to understand on paper doesn't work for me. I need to sit there and physically watch you do it. Once I get that, then I can go, okay, I got that, bang, 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 and you just got used to it. Mm-hmm. So, like I said, if I'm quiet, don't worry, there ain't nothing wrong with me.
No, and Chris knows. I mean,
it should be
he'll tell you, just sometimes get the hell out of the way, too.
Yeah, this should be a fun thing this weekend, this Smutty Nose Brewery cook-off.
Got the ribs going. We're out for blood.
Bringing home the trophy.
Hope so. We'll see.
Hoping we'll bring it.
We'll see.
You already grabbed a case of ribs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll grab those.
Now, you had said that they're competition ribs.
So, all right. There's different, Smithfield, Hatfield, I believe, Compart Duroc. Competition ribs, if you're doing a big competition, KCBS, MBN, you're most likely going to be getting Compart Duroc products. It's basically like the Wagyu of pork. They're fed differently, they're raised differently, and the flavor is just out of this world. You don't have to do anything to it, and it's going to be amazing. But obviously, when you're doing competitions, you're going to inject it. You're going to do whatever you possibly can to this, pork. But with your ribs, Smithfield is a good rib for competitions. People like them, but you want your ribs to be uniform. So you want a nice straight rack. You're going to trim whatever you can to make that rack look perfect. You don't want a crooked rack. You don't want any crooked bones. You want everything to be uniform because that's what you're going to take. You're going to take, the heart of the rib, the center, couple bones, and that's what you're going to turn in. This competition happens to just be a full rack, so I really have no clue what's going on. Is it going to be cut?
Is it going to be the whole rack?
We'll see.
No
know. Idea.
We're going to have to wait for the for the cooks meeting to see what they actually want. Because by the sounds of it, from what you received information the other day from them, they just said it's going to be a rack. So no turn-in box. No.
I'm assuming there's going to be a turn-in box.
Some sort.
There's got to be, but and I'm assuming that it's going to be cut, and then you're going to put them in the box, but it has to be a full rack of ribs. But again, they could just want, here you go, cut it, and then hand it to them. But I have no idea. But again, we'll learn.
We'll find out.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. We'd like to thank you all for joining us. We'd love to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments to pitlifebbqpodcast@gmail.com. On social media, you can find us on YouTube and Facebook at Pit Life BBQ Podcast. If you can't catch us live, find us on iTunes and other podcast carriers. If you're enjoying the show, please like, subscribe, leave a review, tell your friends.
If you're enjoying the show, let us know.
Let us know for sure. Until next week, I'm Johnnie Mags.
Chris Crawdaddy Crawford.
I'm Messy Mike. Keep the smoke rolling.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Café, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.